Chapter 23, The Hunt for a Miracle. On-the-ground searches continued apace on Wednesday, November 17th, 2010. One 5-man team consisted of volunteers who had skills in tracking and search and rescue. These men came from Bucyrus, Delaware, and Marion, Ohio, towns far afield of Apple Valley. One of the men, John Reed, said, "We did not come looking to find bodies. We just wanted to help look for clues, especially near water areas where someone could easily place a person or a body." We searched around the bike path and the Brown Family Environmental Center. We also went out into the quarry. They searched the area around Smalls Sand and Gravel near Gambier, because apparently Matthew Hoffman had worked there at one time. Reed explained, "We found some trash and a couple of old shoes, nothing fresh. You look for things like drag marks, tire tracks, or freshly moved dirt in wild settings. If I was in the same situation, I'd want 1,000,000 people out searching for my family." Despite the fact that John Reed said the volunteers weren't searching for bodies, a headline in the Mount Vernon News summed up the feelings of many on November 17th. Hope fades as time passes. The reporter noted that even Sheriff David Barber sounded more pessimistic than before, and his Wednesday news conference lasted only 10 minutes. A lot of sightings and information have been received by the sheriff's office and continue to be followed up by not only our investigators, but by BCI&I, the FBI, and other outside agencies. These tips and leads have yielded some information that is helpful to the investigation. A lot of it has just been citizens being very conscientious and trying to be helpful, which we appreciate, and we want them to continue giving us information and leads. I told you yesterday that we were going to have photographs of the last known clothing that Tina, Cody, and Stephanie were wearing. Unfortunately, when you look at the video, we could tell what it was, but they didn't reproduce well, so I'm just going to give you what clothing descriptions we have. We know for sure what Tina Herman was wearing last Wednesday. It was a white baseball cap, a tan hoodie, dark-colored sweatpants, and tennis shoes. As far as Cody Maynard goes, he was wearing black shoes, jeans, a gray t-shirt, and a blue zip-up hoodie. We're still trying to find information about what Stephanie was wearing. We did get some responses about the photos of the vehicles that were put out, which will add a little more detail to our timeline. Other than that, the investigation is progressing, and unfortunately, the reality that these folks may not be alive is becoming more and more prevalent, simply because there's been no word from these folks. There's been no credit card activity, no cell phone activity, or anything like that since this event occurred. Evidence is being submitted to BCI&I for evaluation and analysis. We have been assured that the submissions in this investigation are priorities for BCI&I. I will take just a few questions since there are a lot of things going on. A reporter asked what Sarah had said about Matthew Hoffman and what his relationship might have been with the missing people. Barber answered, "It's inappropriate for me to discuss anything Sarah has said to us." Another media person wanted to know if Hoffman had a preset plan to kidnap or attack any of these 4 people. Barber replied, "We follow the investigation where it leads us, and that's yet to be determined." Turning the focus from the victims to the investigators, one person asked, "What has been the emotional toll on you and your staff as you go through this ordeal?" Barbara responded, "It's been a challenge because we have been blessed in this county. We've never had to respond to something this major and this involved. I cannot say enough about the overwhelming support we've had with all our partners in this investigation. As the sheriff of Knox County, I am not territorial. I don't think that I'm so big and know-it-all that I would ever try to handle an investigation this big by myself. I'm proud to ask for help. All of this has definitely been a challenge for us and our families." Another headline also captured the mood of the day. Citizens getting frustrated as they hunt for a miracle. One reporter had spoken to several search volunteers. One of these volunteers, Cindy McBride, told the reporter, "It's not that I don't want to have hope, but it's been 7 days now and it's scary." A woman named Debbie Henthorne was just one of many people spreading the word online about the case and its impact on the region. She noted that she had moved to Mount Vernon almost 30 years earlier and enjoyed its small town feeling. She described it as the kind of place where you know your neighbors and the person who bagged your groceries at the local market. Debbie said that she, like many in the community, had held her breath when there was live coverage of a car being pulled out of a pond at Foundation Park. When it was determined that the car was unconnected to the case, quote, "A sigh of relief went up in my office, only to be deflated once again, knowing that Tina, Cody, and Stephanie were still missing," unquote. Debbie also noted that in a recent football game, the Blue Devils of Danville were going up against their rival, the East Knox Bulldogs. Both Sarah and Cody were students in the East Knox school system. Despite the usually heated rivalry, even the Danville players were wearing the color purple to honor Sarah and Cody. Debbie wrote, "This is how small towns react in the face of tragedy. They help in any way they can. Strangers console one another. They pray alone or together. We give each other hope, no matter how dark things seem. And I can't imagine living in any different type of community." Knox County Emergency Management Agency, EMA, Director Brian Hess was doing all he could to coordinate the search volunteers. He encouraged the volunteers to meet at the parking lot of the Premier Theaters in Mount Vernon. A Red Cross unit there would then give the different teams instructions. Volunteers had found 2 sweatshirts, one blue and one purple, that were being processed by authorities. They were a boy's size, and Cody had been seen wearing a blue sweatshirt when he came home on the day he and Sarah were attacked. Near the town of Gambier, volunteer Jim Fletcher wore an orange hunting vest and overalls and was bundled up against the chilly rain. For over 6 hours, he scoured woods, fields, and fence lines astride his all-terrain vehicle. He said, "We're looking everywhere we can think of. We want to find them, but we're running out of places to look." Volunteers were also using a Facebook page, Pray for the Maynard Kids, to coordinate search efforts. Jennifer Kessler, who knew Tina, Cody, and Sarah, was using the page to coordinate efforts in the Apple Valley area. On the previous evening, the page had 7,700 followers. Many of them had changed their own profile picture to one that symbolized the missing 3 individuals, 3 lighted candles. One posting stated, "Okay, Lord, we need a miracle now." More tipsters contacted investigators. Beth B. contacted KCSO, saying they might want to check out a hollow tree in the woods off of Maplewood Avenue. Carl P. stated that he was a friend of Hoffman's and knew that Hoffman would sometimes go to the drainage ponds that were between Walmart and Staples. Debbie M. said she had been working at a residence across the street from Hoffman's place on Columbus Road in the previous week. She thought she saw him take a baby carrier into the house. Mike H. said he had been out around 6:45 a.m. on Tuesday, November 9th. He thought he had seen a car like Hoffman's silver Yaris parked close to a lot near a business called Knopf's. Charles W., meanwhile, was sure that on the previous Tuesday he had seen Hoffman in a Lowe's parking lot with a woman who had long blonde hair. Another tipster, Nora G., related, "On November 3rd, I was at Kmart around 4:45 p.m. and parked beside a small silver car with a dent. The car had trash bags piled up in the back seat and a tarp. In the store, there was a male who looked like Matt Hoffman. He was with another male about 6'1" who had dark hair and was of medium build. Thomas C. left a message that on Sunday or Monday, November 7th or 8th, he had seen a black van drive by Tina Herman's house very slowly. Someone knocked on the door, but when Tina went to answer, the person ran into the woods. Around the same time, Thomas said, Stephanie heard footsteps in the garage of Tina's house. Supposedly Thomas knew Stephanie and that she had told him this. Whether it was true or not, the investigators were not able to verify this. If it was true, it indicated that Hoffman or someone else might have been casing Tina's house before the crimes of November 10th. Bobby H. contacted KCSO and related that Stephanie had a tracking device on her phone, meaning that if Matt Hoffman had taken her phone and used it, the area where he used it could be traced. James B. told KCSO, "Driving by the Kokosing Dam at 2 a.m. on Wednesday, November 10th, I saw a man leaving the woods with a dog. He was using a flashlight." And yet another man who would not give his name declared, "I just thought the coverage of the Elizabeth Smart trial in Utah might set Hoffman off and get him to talk." This trial concerned a deranged man and his accomplice kidnapping a young blonde girl in Utah. Elizabeth Smart, like Sarah, survived and eventually regained her freedom. Lewis R. believed the bodies were in an old barn somewhere. The only problem with that tip was there were a lot of old barns in that part of Ohio. Despite their weakening hope, volunteers were still pouring in. Between 300 and 400 people congregated at the KCSO headquarters at the request of the sheriff's office, where EMA Director Brian Hess was in charge of coordinating the various teams. Each team was assigned a specific location, with most of the teams being sent out into the Apple Valley and Gambier portions of the county. All of this activity occurred during November 17th. Hess put into action a grid pattern searching system, a much more effective search method than the random one used in the earlier volunteer efforts. The search teams would now search in a grid pattern, which would ensure that they didn't overlook some areas or search the same areas twice. Hess told a reporter, "Today's turnout is a great testament of the people of Knox County." The miles of rivers, creeks, and ponds in the Apple Valley area made the searches difficult at best. A pair of kayakers volunteered to row down one of the rivers looking for anything that might be pertinent to the case. Others thrashed through undergrowth and brambles. In an effort to provide a broader perspective on cases like the one unfolding in Apple Valley, the Mount Vernon News contacted Jack Levin, co-director of the Brudnick Center on Violence and Conflict at Northeastern University in Boston. Levin, an expert on such situations, said that Sarah Maynard was, quote, very, very lucky to be alive. When a stranger abducts a girl, the kidnapper almost always acts alone, unquote. He also said that while there were about 58,000 child abductions in the United States every year, almost all of those were by parents or relatives of the children. There had been only 115 stranger kidnappings of children in the previous year. Sometimes a group will attack a family in a random act of violence, but those cases are rare, and the situation in Knox County doesn't seem to fit that pattern. Levin also said that in most violent cases that involved families, the bodies were generally left at the scene of the crime. He did note that in crimes where an individual acted alone, the assailant was generally someone who had lost their job and broken up in a relationship not long before the crime. In Matthew Hoffman's case, both were true.